Bad. So inshallah I'll run for around 45. Still within the salah tips within Tazkiyah. And when I'm trying to simplify a third of Islam within this one session, this weekly session, which is impossible. Every other third of Islam requires much more comprehensive work to be able to be explained and understood. I'm trying my best to bring it as close as possible to you. One of the four categories of Tazkiyah is the rituals. It's important because it's really what makes this deen the deen. Like what makes Islam Islam are the rituals. That's a very important part. If you remove the rituals, then you're lacking an extremely central aspect of what our deen is. For every religion, the rituals define it to a certain degree. The rituals define how the religion will function and how people will understand their religion. So it's important that as a young Muslim, you spend some time studying your rituals, studying them from a fiqh perspective, understanding the mechanics of them, and then studying them from a tazkiyah perspective so you understand the purposes of them. Because if they're understood appropriately and practiced appropriately, then they do have extremely positive impacts on us as Muslims, as human beings. And we all know that because we recite this ayah in the Quran and then we look at each other wondering what to do with it. Inna salata, right? Tanha anil fahsha'i wal munkar. Indeed, salah in its own sense discourages or commands against fahsha, which is all the bad ethics, sexual ethics. Wal munkar, and just badness in general. All that which is just negative. Like salah is one of the things in your life that will hold you back from bad behaviors, and then people look around at each other and say, when is that going to kick in? Anytime, when is that going to start happening? And it doesn't just happen, and if you understand it that way, then you're going to be very disappointed in the long run, because it doesn't just happen. It occurs when salah is properly understood and properly practiced as well. And that requires some interest from you within your rituals. Yes, you were taught your rituals as a child. You learned how to make wudu and make salah, and you were taught how to perform siyam and how to do hajj and all these things, which is great, alhamdulillah, it's important. But when you come to the age of reason, then you have to go back not only for salah and rituals, but for everything in life, and you have to do a little bit of a reanalysis. Like you have to go through some degree of critical thinking about everything that you were taught, everything that you inherited in life, all the cultural pieces, the traditions, the inherited beliefs, the judgment, right? The judgments that we all come into this life with prejudgments, ways we understand people, or the ways we see people, or we see ourselves. These judgments you have to go back and ask, are they, what I inherited from my parents, are they correct? You're going to find a lot of it needs to be fixed. And a lot of it is good, and you can hold on to it as well. Amongst the things that you have to do that for is definitely salah. Because salah, as you learn it as a young child, it becomes much more mechanical. I'm asking you now to really think about it in some degree of depth so you can appreciate the beautiful design that salah has. And that if you practice it with that understanding and you allow yourself to embrace the spirituality of it, then with time it will actually affect you in a very, very positive way. And you'll find yourself enjoying it, and you'll find it one of the sanctuaries within your life. You'll find it as something that you look forward to doing. And that's why the Prophet ﷺ, it wasn't enough for him, the 5 during the day. He looked forward to Qiyam al-Layl, and so did the Sahaba. And they found, it was a sanctuary for them. They found some degree of peace and tranquility and serenity within doing it. And I'm not saying this is going to be your case after listening to my 5 or 6 lectures right immediately. But if you start walking this path and you start working on yourself and working on your intentions and the way that you understand your perspectives and your attitudes and the conceptuals and the concepts and principles that you understand, then this will start becoming a little bit easier. But in the meantime, let's just go through some of these tips. So what we've talked about so far is that salah spiritually is mirrored by the physical postures that you take. So every movement in salah is there to reflect a spiritual posture, a spiritual understanding. And that's why we recite the word of Allah. We recite the Quran standing up, because this is the way you recite back to Him His word. This is how you embrace his guidance. You show that you understand it. It makes sense to you. You've accepted it. You are in full agreement to the point where you've memorized it by heart. You know it. You can recite it back from your mind. That's how much adherence there is from you towards these words. And the more you do that, the more you establish your adherence and your obedience and your understanding of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's guidance to you, the better the salah is. That's why the best part of salah is qiyam. So, make sure you give it some time. And we talked about the pause before that, just allowing yourself to disconnect maybe from the train of thoughts that were happening before, or at least bringing those train of thoughts into salah in a way where you are asking Allah for guidance regarding them. Like whatever it is that you're very worried about, bring it into salah. Who else are you going to take it to if not to Him? who else is worthy of you, presenting this problem to if not to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? So either you stop the train of thoughts because what you're thinking about is not important, like it's not important, you don't think it's important, it's just there, it's food and falafel and batata, it doesn't make a difference, so you can put it aside. Or if it's an actual problem, meaning you're struggling or suffering with an issue, this is some issue of anxiety or fear or an obstacle in your life, then bring it into salah and in a way that's productive, where you can actually speak to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala about it. Standing is for Quran. You establish the guidance that He gave to you and your understanding of it. You bow. Now spiritually, this means that you are establishing a difference, that I am not equal to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and I cannot measure Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala through the same measurements that I use for myself. He is the exalted subhanahu wa ta'ala. You magnify Him, and you give your opinion in God, how you understand Him and what you see Him, how you see Him subhanahu wa ta'ala. And it's through tasbih, which is the way that we understand it as Muslims. And if these are concepts to you that are a bit unclear, go back to the sessions that we've recorded over the last few weeks and listen to the sessions deeply so you can understand how to do this. And then the third and final part of salah, that is your offering to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You stand up again, and this time you show gratitude. And you are on your 2 feet, your head is held high, and you are showing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gratitude, and you are showing hamd, you're praising Allah for all that which you have in your life. That even if you can't think of anything, He's still worthy of praise, so you're showing that praise. So these are the 3 movements, these are the 3 spiritual concepts that you are expressing in your salah. The embracing of guidance, the magnification of His status, your opinion in Him, and the gratitude, the way of life that you have. And the more you offer in those 3 movements, the more you can cash in the next 3 that are specifically for you. And last week we talked about the first one, which is sujood. And you do sujood in salah twice. And it's purposeful to equalize salah so that it's divided dead in the middle. So it's not 60-40, it's 50-50. 3 movements that you offer, you establish your offering to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then 3 that are for you, where it's an open buffet. You can go ahead and ask for that which you want. And you get to do sujood twice. And the concept here is as if you made sujood the first time and you asked for whatever it is that you wanted to ask for, you're going to get another chance to do it again in case you forgot a bunch of stuff that you didn't talk about the first time around. So the second sujood is almost like a follow-up. In case and we find examples of that in the Prophet ﷺ hadith, when he talks about what occurs Yawm al-Qiyamah, where you sit, when inshallah, may Allah make it the status of all of us Yawm al-Qiyamah, say Ameen, that you go to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and He tells you, Ya abdi, tamanna alay, O my servant, ask me for what you want. So the servant begins to speak, Ya Rabb, a'tini kada, wa a'tini kada, oh my Lord, grant me this, and grant me this, and grant me that, and I want this, and I want that. So he goes on one after the other, until he's done. The servant is done asking. So when he's finished, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaks to the servant and says, Ya abdi, ma sa'altani an kada, but you didn't ask me about that one. فَيَقُولُ عَبْدُ بَلَا يَا رَبْ, oh yes, I forgot about that one, I want that one too. وَعَبْدِي لَمْ تَسْأَلْنِي عَنْ كَذَا, and this one too, you didn't talk about this. Now, so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala basically, open up the doors and the windows for the things that the servant didn't even ask about. So in salah it's very similar. You make dua the first time around, and then you're allowed a second chance to make dua again. Focus in your dua and sujood focus on your present and your future. Focus on your present and focus on your future. That's what these 2 movements are for. The 2 sujoods are for you to ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala regarding something that you're going through right now, or regarding something that you are worried about or you want within your future. And I talked a little bit about dua because if dua to you is not something that you're comfortable with, if supplication is not something, an art that you have picked up, or a conversational aspect of your relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that you're not clear upon, or you don't feel comfortable doing, then this is a good opportunity for us to make sure that's clear. When we are speaking to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, if you did the first 3 movements correctly, if you are guided, meaning you know why you're here and where you're going with your life, that will reflect on what you ask for. if you're guided, if you stood there and you recited al-Fatiha, Ihdina as-Sirat al-Mustaqim, and you recited some of that guidance, then you know why you're here. So that will be reflected in what you're asking for. You should be asking for things that reflect your understanding of why you're alive. Like that purposefulness, right? That the first piece of salah, you're standing there, is establishing for you purposefulness, that you have purpose. You're asking for guidance, you're asking to be guided so that you're going in a direction. You're not just walking aimlessly in life. So that should be reflected in what you ask for. So if you're asking for things that don't reflect that, that means that first part was not done properly. There's a disconnection in salah, which is the problem for in most cases. There's a complete disconnection. You're standing there asking for guidance, you're reciting the guidance, and then you're asking for something that makes no sense at all. That is not connected to this guidance. It's not connected to what you should be asking for, what we should care about. Like what you'll find out as you make dua is that it's not enough just to want something to ask for it. You should also question, should I want this? Like, is this something I should want to begin with? And if like, no, I shouldn't want this, then maybe my dua shouldn't be for it, but rather for Allah to rid me of the desire that I have for it. Because I shouldn't want this to begin with. It's not in keeping with the guidance He taught me. That makes sense. Like the thing that you're asking for, is this reflecting the guidance that you have? And if it's not, then your dua becomes different. It's not for it, but it's rather, like if you understood from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala why you're here, where you're going with your life, and you're making sujood for, let's say your focus is on nothing else but wealth, and fame, and fortune, and wealth, and fame, and fortune, and you're just asking for that continuously, well, that's not really reflecting someone who understands why they're here, and what life is about, and where they're going with this later on. So the question has to be, Ya Rab, why is it that I don't want this as much? I know that I want it. I want the fame, I want the fortune, I want the wealth, I shouldn't want this much. My heart shouldn't be filled with this. So your dua changes. It goes from just asking for it to asking, Ya Rab, I need to rid myself of this. I don't know how. Ya Rab, guide me to get rid of this. Teach me how to get rid of this. Put me in company of people who will allow me to get rid of this. Show me a better way. Allow me to see the light in a better way of living. Right? If you do tasbih appropriately, right, if you understand the difference in the status between yourself and between Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then your attitude in asking is not an attitude of conservatism. You're not asking in a way where you're like, I'm worried that I ask too much. I don't want to overburden. No. He is Allah and you are a servant. There's nothing that you can ask Him that will be beyond what He is able to offer you subhanahu wa ta'ala. So you ask Him for absolutely everything. But when you're asking for everything, you're asking for everything that's in alignment with the guidance that you were offered. You know what to ask for. What do I mean by that? Does it make any sense for someone to make dua for something that's haram? Right? Ya Rab, you ask for haram? How does that work? When you're making dua, you have to be asking for at least something that's halal. And if you understand the guidance, then that halal should be something that will allow you to build a life that's even better. You can ask for something that you're going to use, and like it makes no sense. Ya Rab, allow me to perform more ma'asi. That's if someone doing that is either mocking, which is horrible, or someone completely lost. It makes no sense at all for you to be asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to sin, right? So you're going to always be asking for a way to be a better person. But how do you define better? How do you find good? How do you define being a good person to begin with? Isn't that the guidance? Don't you need guidance to be told what a good person is to begin with, so you ask for it? And then shouldn't you understand who you're asking? Who are you asking? If you come up to someone and you know how much they have in their bank account, you're going to ask based on how important you are to them and how much money they got, right? And how many people have asked them already. You factor all these things in your mind, and then you come up with a calculation. And in your mind, this is a number that they should be okay giving to me. And if they don't give it to you, you get upset, and they give you more, you're happy. But you're making this calculation. So what's your calculation when you speak to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? What are you factoring in? You factor in that He is the King of Kings subhanahu wa ta'ala, that He owns all. You're factoring that you have nothing. You're factoring in that your importance to Him is as much as He is important to you. Like your importance to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is basically His importance to you. He loves you as much as you love Him, because He's already taken care of you so far. So any love that you hope to have from Him subhanahu wa ta'ala and care for you will be basically mirrored in whatever love and care you have for Him. So if you want to ask Him for a lot, then you must have offered Him a lot subhanahu wa ta'ala. And you should be trying to offer Him the best you've got in order for you to ask the best He has. And knowing that it doesn't matter how many people ask Him, it doesn't matter to Him. He will give them all, as the Prophet ﷺ tells us, Hadith al-Qudsi, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, لو اجتمع أولكم وآخركم وإنسكم وجنكم في صعيد واحد فسألوني فأعطيت كل واحد منهم مسألته ما نقص ذلك مما عندي إلا كما ينقص المخيط إذا دخل البحر. If the first of you, meaning all the human beings, at the beginning of time, the end of time, ins and jinn, all came in one place, all 100 billion of them stood there, and they asked Allah for everything they could possibly think for. All of them, each and every one of them, all the greed that existed in their hearts came out in one moment, and they asked for everything that they wanted, and they got it all. It's nothing more than taking a pin and putting it through the ocean. What does the pin leave with? That's that's the effect it has on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's mulk. So understanding all that, then from tasbih, then you know how to ask. You are not conservative. You're asking Him from His karam. You're not asking Him based on how good you are. You're asking Him based on how generous He is, which is not. If it's based on me, then I'm not going to say a word. I deserve nothing. But it's based on your generosity, then I'm going to. I'll be greedy in your generosity, because it's His generosity, right? And then the third piece, but if you perform the hamd properly, if you say Sami Allahu liman hamida, and you're truly grateful, then as you ask Him subhanahu wa ta'ala, you're not asking Him with an attitude of disgruntlement. Like you're not asking Him and you feel disappointed or frustrated, or you're already upset that you haven't been given what you've been asking for before. You're grateful. There's a big difference in how people ask for stuff, by the way. The attitude here makes a difference. Your attitude when you're asking for something in life is obvious on the way that you ask for it. Whether you are grateful for what you've already been offered, versus where you feel like, when is it going to be my turn? How many times do I have to knock on this door? I've been standing outside for a few hours. I'm tired. Like, are you going to give me what I'm looking for? No, it's different than someone who's grateful. It's like, you've already given me so much. So whatever I'm happy with whatever you choose for me. Whatever you offer me, I'm okay with it. So it's an issue of attitude. So when you're standing actually in salah, the first three movements that you're offering Allah, they are dictating the attitude, the mentality, the perspective that you're going to have when you make sujood and ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala within your dua. So that's why they're important. If you have the proper understanding, then your dua will reflect that as well. But the early generation of Muslims and the Prophets, alayhimu salatu wasalam, the way they understood dua was not really as a series of requests of things that they just wanted. I want A and B and C and D and It was more of a conversation. And if you treat dua like a genie's bottle, or Aladdin's lamp, then you're in trouble. If the way that you see dua is, Ya Rab, give me this, and then the genie is going to come and give it to you right then and there, so it's a request that you're asking for. If that's how you end up seeing dua, then frustration is going to be, you're going to be frustrated, and you're not going to be happy, or you're going to be disappointed with the outcome. Dua is not that. Dua is your ongoing conversation with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You're speaking to Allah. When you ask for things, Ya Rab, grant me health, and grant my spouse health, and my children health, and my parents. Ya Rab, grant me tawfiq so I can worship you better. Grant me the ability to raise my children well. Ya Rab, grant me the ability to be kind to my parents. When you say these things, you are expressing to Him your way of understanding the world. It is making it clear what you value in life, what your priorities are. You're going to ask for that which is priority to you. And you're going to drop the stuff that don't matter to you. Like you won't ask for the stuff that you don't care about. You'll ask about the things that you care about. So as you speak to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you are expressing your understanding of the world and what matters to you through these words. So really it's an opportunity for you to document with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala what you care about, what you want, what matters to you in life. And that can reflect upon you very positively Yawm al-Qiyamah. Or it could reflect upon you negatively Yawm al-Qiyamah. It really depends on what you're asking for, right? So this is an important piece to remember. It's a conversation. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala responds to dua in different ways. He can offer you what you want when you want it. And that happens. And each and everyone here has walked into that, where they said, Ya Rab, this, and they got it. Right? But He can offer you what you want at a different time. He can offer you something a bit better, or something a little bit different. He could offer you something, He could not offer it to you and hold it back and give you reward for it Yawm al-Qiyamah. He could remove a difficulty coming your way for it. All of these are istijabah. All of these are ways that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala respond to your dua. Response to your dua doesn't mean that I asked for it, I got it. Response to your dua comes in many forms. And that's why one of the conditions of making dua is that you have to have full certainty that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is responding to you. That you would not speak to the king and He would send you away. That the Kareem subhanahu wa ta'ala, if you ever ask Him, then He will listen. And He will respond to you appropriately. As long as you have the right attitude as you speak to Him. As long as you know what you're asking for, then He will grant it for you. But you have to understand that it comes in different ways. And sometimes you'll make dua for something, and it's not in the books for you. You're not destined to this. You're not going to get this. It's just not a part of your life story. Asking for it is not haram. But accepting that you're not getting it is important, so that you ask for what comes next. Maybe someone he can't have children, and they make dua, Ya Rabb, dhurriya salih. And they make dua all their lives, but it's not in the books for them. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala his predestination and his decree is that this person is not going to have children. Making dua is not wrong here. You can make dua as much as you want for this. But then what is the attitude? The attitude is an attitude of magnification, of gratitude, of acceptance. It shows that, Ya Rabb, well, why do you want children? Ya Rabb, grant me children so I may raise them to be good Muslims. Do you understand when you do that, when you say that, and you don't get children all your life, that you come Yawm al-Qiyamah with the ajr of having children and had raised them as good Muslims? You get the full ajr. Because this is something that you ask for all of your life. You never stop, you continue to ask him dhurriya salihah until the last moment, as Sayyidina Zakaria alayhi salam did. Maybe you get it, maybe you don't. Sometimes Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grants people children, sometimes He doesn't. There's a life story you're going to live. There are certain things in your life you're going to live them. This is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has decreed for you. You may get it, you get what you want, you may not. Dua is your expression. It's your opportunity to express to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala your fears, your hopes, the way you understand the world, what you want from all of this, right? What you care about. This is very important because you're documenting it with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Yawm al-Qiyamah, here's what you cared about. And there's a lot of ajr in doing that. That's why you hear Maryam alayhi salam, when she talks to Allah, she speaks to Him. Oh, Ya Rabb, I had a child. Well, when she gave birth, it turned out to be a female. She had dedicated her, she said to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, إِنِّي نَذَرْتُ لَكَ مَا فِي بَطْنِي مُحَرَّرًا فَتَقَبَّلْ مِنِّي إِنَّكَ أَنْتَ السَّمِيعُ الْعَلِيمُ. I have offered you, I've dedicated to the Masjid al-Aqsa, the child is in my belly. So accept from me, you are the all-hearing and the all-knowing. And then she gives birth to a daughter. Women were not dedicated to the Masjid al-Aqsa. It was only boys. But of course the story has so many layers to it, because Maryam alayhi salam, who was the child here, was actually dedicated as the first woman, and she became who she became. So when she gave birth to her, قالت فلما وضعتها قالت ربي إني وضعتها أنثى. Oh my Lord, I have given birth to a female. And the ayah says, وَاللَّهُ أَعْلَمُ بِمَا وَضَعَتْ. And Allah knows best what she gave birth to. Like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not need to, He's not busy. He knows what happened. And this ayah is in the Quran to say that He knows, but she still said it. Because that is a conversation. You're speaking to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وَإِنِّي سَمَّيْتُهَا Maryam. She's speaking to God still. And I indeed named her Maryam. وَإِنِّي أُعِيذُهَا بِكَ وَذُرِّيَّتَهَا مِنَ الشَّيْطَانِ الرَّجِيمِ. And I seek refuge for her and her progeny from the evil of the shaitan. فَتَقَبَّلَهَا رَبُّهَا بِقَبُولٍ حَسَنٍ. And Allah and her Lord accepted her. You find Ayyub alayhi salam, for example, for decades he was in difficulty. He struggled. Sayyidina Ayyub alayhi salam, he didn't have, he lived a very comfortable life as a prophet. He was a prophet, he was respected, he had wealth, he had children, he had status, he had all these things in his life. And he lived like that for generations, like for decades upon decades. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tested him. And he got very sick. And his children all died or left him. And he lost his social status. And he became poor financially. And his prophecy didn't match up to anything anymore because no one wanted to speak to him. They thought he had a contagious disease. And he spent like this years. He was in this for 18 years, the narrations tell us. And his wife was taking care of him, and she finally got upset and tired, and she told him, when are you finally going to get the end of this? And he got upset with her when she said that. But his argument, alayhi salam, this understanding, is that he was embarrassed to ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for changing his status. He made dua, but he didn't say, Ya Rabb, give me back what I had before. He felt embarrassed, like you gave me years and years of ease, and he's like, I won't ask him until I've spent in the difficulty the same amount of time I spent in ease. That's what his mind. But then before that happened, he saw how difficult it was on his loved one. So the ayah, the dua you find in the Quran, he was saying, Rabbi massani ad-dur. Oh my Lord, I have been harmed by difficulty. I've been touched. Massani ad-dur. Ad-dur is difficulty or harm. I have been harmed by this difficulty. Wa anta arhamur rahimin. And you are the most merciful amongst the merciful. He didn't say anything. He didn't say, Ya Rabb, rid me of this or give me that. That's all he said. He just said, until you see where I am, I don't know. I can't say anything more. Sayyidina Yunus, when he was in the belly of the hoot, of the whale, La ilaha illa ant, subhanak, inni kuntu min al-zalimin. Dua comes in many forms. It's not just requests. It's not just asking for stuff. It's expression. It's expression of how we feel and what we're going through. And it doesn't have to happen in proper Arabic. It can happen in whatever language you speak. Actually, if you try to always force it into proper Arabic, you'll probably never be able to make a proper dua in your life. Now you should do that in certain situations, like we were saying for Tarawih. We'll make the dua the way the Prophet ﷺ made it. We'll stick to his dua, ﷺ, the dua of the Quran. But you have to learn to make dua that expresses what your inner feelings and your inner struggles, so that you speak to him. Because if you don't speak to him, here's the thing. Your struggles and problems and fears and all these things, I'm going to give you a really important piece of information about them. Nobody cares about them. And no one wants to hear them at all. No one. There is not one living soul who wants to listen to you complain. No one. They'll do it out of respect, and sometimes because they're paid, and sometimes because they have to, but they don't want to. Because everyone has their own set of problems. So no one really wants to do it. But they'll do it anyway. So it's an act of compassion. People will do it. Dad, what's going on? And they'll listen to you. But you think they actually want to? I mean, they were thinking all day, you know what? Today I'm going to have a nice afternoon. I'm going to go to Fulan so they can complain to me about all their problems, all their first world problems, and I'm going to listen to them for the whole time and support them. No one wants to do it. They'll do it. The only one who wants you to complain to them, the only one who wants you to speak as long as you want, for as long as you need, is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So for you to bring your problem to anyone else before him, or to anyone else with more passion than him, or to anyone else with more dependence on getting the result than talking to him, is a problem. Is a problem in your tasbih, is a problem in your hamd, is a problem in your guidance when you don't understand the proper way. You will bring your problems to people, and you'll ask for guidance, and you'll ask for help, and you'll ask for support, and you'll ask for solutions. For sure, this is a part of life. I'm not saying you stop doing that. But that should not be an alternative to speaking to Allah. And your dependence when you do this should not be on anyone but Allah. And you should have already brought this problem to Allah a long time before. Which is what Yaqub told his kids. I'm not complaining to you. I'll never complain to you. I will never bring my problems to you. إِنَّمَا أَشْكُو بَثِّي وَحُزْنِي إِلَى اللَّهِ. I am exclusively taking my pain and my sorrow to Allah. I'm not bringing it to you. They're all frustrated. تَاللَّهِ تَفْتَأُ تَذْكُرُ يُوسُفَ حَتَّى تَكُونَ حَرَضًا. Again with Yusuf. Yusuf again. Every time something goes wrong, he has to bring up Yusuf. This is his children, right? And now he's upset for Yusuf and for Binyamin, who was left behind. So now he's like Yusuf and Binyamin, and they're all frustrated with him. He didn't care. He's like, I'm not complaining to you. May Allah end my life the day I need to complain to you. I don't need you. I don't need anything from you. I'm speaking to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So it's more like a shut up. And they did. They left him alone. But that's his understanding of it. إِنَّمَا أَشْكُو. We don't complain about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. See, that's the problem. See, that's what happens if you don't make dua. When you don't complain to him, because you're a complainer by nature. We all are. By birth, the moment you come into this world, the skill set that requires no educational piece, it does not require any training. I don't have to run mentorship programs to teach people how to do it. It just happens. We learn how to complain about what we don't like in our lives. It's part of being alive, and we're very good at it. So because that's a part of who we are, you have to decide, where is that energy going to be channeled? Are you going to complain about him, or are you going to complain to him? And dua is basically the ability for you to complain to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Express to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that which you are struggling with, not the opposite. Not the opposite. The example I gave you last week, or the exercise that I suggested last week, and I'm going to suggest it to you again. You can try it on your own. We don't have to do it like as a group. It's very simple. You sit there, you time yourself for 3.5 minutes to 5 minutes, and you make dua. You make dua, all the dua that you know. And then when you're done, you make dua again, with the one condition that you don't repeat anything that was said the first time around. Nothing. You don't repeat not even one dua that you said the first time around. And at the beginning, it'll be a little bit strange and maybe challenging, because you'll just sit there quietly, and that's okay. Sometimes sitting there quietly with nothing to say, but in a position of supplication, meaning in a posture of supplication and in a mindset of supplication, is not the worst thing. Sometimes not saying anything is okay. But what I want you to do is, what you'll figure out about yourself when you're performing this dua, the first dua, is that you are performing it as whatever avatar you are presenting yourself through. Like we all present ourselves through social masks of some sort. When you're making dua, you have to learn to get rid of all of them. like you have to remove any premise for yourself as a father or a mother or a spouse or a leader of some sort or a company manager or an employee you have to get rid of all of that. And you have to speak to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Remember we talked about self-honesty. I told you in your raw form. And I brought up the concept of the raw form a number of times and people kept on getting confused with it. And the concept of the raw form is understanding yourself with none of these things. Like just who you are in your essence, who you are as a servant, as a creation, as someone who is just a creation of Allah, nothing else. There's no other descriptions. There's nothing before your name, after your name. There's no big signature. There's nothing else. It's just your name, just you. But no more titles. And then speak to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that way, as the afraid, confused, struggling creature that we all are. And when you speak to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala like that, because people come and ask, how do you perform, you've been talking about Tazkiyah for 3 years, and you have yet to talk about khushu'. Khushu' is not a practice. There's nothing to teach. Khushu' is just an outcome. It's just an aftermath. It's a result of a number of certain things being clear. If you try and force it, it doesn't work very well. And people force it sometimes because they're trying. That's okay, but it doesn't work long term. The concept of khushu', where you are fully embracing the moment and you feel that closeness, it's not something you can force. It's something that it's just a result of all the bricks in the right place, everything being appropriate. And one of those things is just when you speak to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you speak to Him as who you are. No acting anymore. That's why when you make the first dua, you're just making the first dua as something, you have to get rid of all that. And just sit there. And you will find that when you do that, when you finally are able to do that, your struggle will be to hold yourself back, to control yourself, to control your emotions. Because when you actually speak with your true emotion, as your true self, it's very refreshing. It's very therapeutic, by the way. It's very therapeutic. The Prophet ﷺ, I don't even think about this. I don't even think about men in the 6th century. If you have a grandfather who was born in 50s or something, and you deal with them, they're rough guys, right? Like these are rough men, born in the 50s and 40s. Well, even here, even in Canada, like I treat people in their 80s and stuff, and they're tough guys. It's a tough generation. They're post World War II. Like some of them were born before it was over, so they grew up in a different time than us, and they're much more. I want you to think of a man who was born in the 1400 years ago, not 50 years ago, not 80 years ago, 1400 years ago. If you think this guy is tough, look at someone who's born before electricity was even a concept, right? These are men who are living in the middle of the desert. They're not living in Athens or Rome or some of these luxurious cities that had a lot of. No, they're living in the desert. These are men who. Some of them would ask, as you know the story, where the Arabi asked the Prophet ﷺ, why are you kissing him? Like he was carrying Al-Hassan, kissing his grandson. Like, what are you doing? I have 10 children, I've never kissed one of them in my life. Well, what is this? You're making them soft. That's what he's saying. He's like, you're softening him up. And the Prophet ﷺ tells him, what do I do? What can I do if there's no rahmah in your heart? Like, how do I fix that? Like, I can't fix that for you. Like, what are you talking about? They're your children. But imagine men living back then. Sayyidina Umar al-Khattab, a door of a man. A door of a man. People were physically scared of him. Physically scared of him. Like if he walked into a room, you wouldn't know what to do. You'd feel like you need to hide somewhere. Very rough individual, lived life. And yet, when you look at his face, there was 2 lines that ran down his face, a discoloration on his cheeks. Like his cheeks were discolored. They weren't the same color. There was a line that was a different color because of the hours he would spend with tears running down his face, radiallahu anhu, in dua. What possibly could have taken... These men, not only did they not cry openly, they didn't show any form of emotion openly. At all. Again, if you have a Middle Eastern or older, just an older person in your life, male, you'll know what I'm talking about. The majority of them, this is how they grew up. It's hard to... So imagine what it's like a millennium ago. Like they didn't... And yet the Prophet ﷺ taught them how to become not only... He taught them how to express emotions in ways that we don't know how. Like we don't know how. Like if you think you're progressive and you've figured out your emotion, you don't. You don't know how to express it as they did. These rough, men from rigid backgrounds and tough individuals. They were tough in everything in life until they sat and they made dua, until they made their sujood. Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu, the Khalifa, Abu Bakr basically, I want you to imagine this. The Prophet ﷺ is standing there and he's holding the whole ummah together. That's what you have to imagine. He ﷺ is holding everything together. And he passes away. And all the ropes and the strings, they fall. And the only person who was able to pick it all up was this man, Abu Bakr. He picked it all up again and he held it again. And he wrapped it up and he made sure it was going to be held later on. This is a monster of a man, in a good way. He's holding on to it. And yet, Abu Bakr would never pray imam. Very rarely. And if he would have someone else do it. Why? Because he couldn't understand a word. Because he couldn't hear anything. It was just sobbing from the beginning to the end. When he prayed alone, there's no point of having Abu Bakr stand up front, because the moment he began Bismillah, that's it, he fell into, you couldn't hear, couldn't understand anything. He would recite a surah, you had no idea what surah he was reciting, and then there's no point. We don't. So how is it? How is it people like this understand where they're living? Yeah, Sheikh, go perform Umrah. Go stand today. Go stand in the mountains of Mecca today, and think of what that. Go see the people who live in Mecca outside of the Haram, and see what that land produces in terms of human beings. This is rigid land that will produce rigid, tough human beings, and yet they had learned how to express emotions better than any generation, documented in history. In history, I don't have an example. I challenge anyone on earth to show me something like this. To show me, because it's not an example of one or two people. It's not Abu Bakr and Umar. No, it's every single individual that I can quote for you that lived with him, alayhi salatu wasalam. When they prayed, when they performed their dua, the floodgates opened for all of them. And they didn't do it in jama'ah. They were talking about on their own. They would listen to them as they prayed or as they made their dua, just sobbing in tears, crying, openly crying, speaking to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But when that was done, they wiped their tears and they went and they stood and they fought for years. And these are people who carried the globe on their shoulders how is it? How is it? Because they figured something out. Yes, you play your roles outside of salah. Outside salah, you are Dr. Fulan, Muhandis Fulan, Ustad Fulan, Abu Fulan, Hajj Fulan, Muallim Fulan. This is who you are outside of salah. In salah, before you perform salah, you take that cape off, you hang it up outside, and then you enter as Abdullah, as Al-Abd Fulan, as the servant Fulan. And that's how they entered in salah. And for them, this is where they expressed their fear, and they expressed their love, and they expressed their struggles, and they cried. It's very awkward to see an elderly man cry, right? It's not something we're used to. I want you to imagine going to the Prophet ﷺ's masjid. It's a normal thing. It happened all the time. Every time he spoke about Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he would tear up. Every time the Sahaba sat with him, listening to him, they would tear up. Every time they made dua, they would be in tears. Every time they listened to the Quran being recited, they would be in tears. Normal. But then after that, when they're outside the masjid and they're standing in battle, they're not crying. When they're building Medina, they're not crying. Right? When they're taking care of business, they weren't. It was this understanding of things. So dua, you really have to spend some time understanding how to make it properly. It's not a conversation you're having with a peer. It's a conversation you're having with your Lord, who is more beloved to you than your parents, who is more beloved to you than your spouse, who is more beloved to you than your best friend or the person you love the most, who cares more for you than any of the above, right? Who has granted you more than any of the above. And you have to understand what that relationship is going to look like. Dua is where it all comes down. This is what the Prophet ﷺ says. قال الدعاء, this hadith Imam Tirmidhi, the authentic narration. قال الدعاء هو العبادة. Period. It's one of the shortest hadith that we have. It's 3 words, or maybe even 2 if you want. Dua is worship. Dua is what worship is. Like what worship comes down to, if you want to summarize it all, it comes down to this, to dua. Your ability, why? Because this is how you establish your relationship with Him subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now, in order for this relationship to work, there has to be a premise. There has to be understandings. There has to be understanding of guidance. There has to be understanding of tasbih, of hamd. All these things have to be properly established so that you can have a proper relationship. Or you'll have a bad relationship. There are many people in this world who have a bad relationship with God. A bad one. They have a relationship with God, just not a good one. Just not a good one. Either they've decided that they're going to ignore Him altogether, or they're disgruntled, or they're upset, or they're challenging, or there's a lot of ways to have a relationship with Allah. What is yours? What is your relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? What is it? Mutual respect? No. You have that with a peer, a colleague at work. And he said, not with Allah. That's not your. And a lot of people don't know how to articulate what is the relationship. Whatever it is, which is obviously what Tazkiyah is about, and what this whole series is trying to explain, is going to be reflected in the way that you make dua and the type and quality of your supplication. So learn to do this. Make sure that, and that's why I believe you have two sujoods. Because you'll go down and make the first sujood, you'll say Subhana Rabbi al-A'la wa bihamdihi, right? The introduction before you start asking or speaking to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then you make dua, then you sit up, and then you go down again, offer another opportunity. This time try to make it even better. This time try to be a little bit more sincere with it. Really speak from your heart. And really speak to Him as He deserves to be spoken to, subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this is this obviously is a huge topic that I don't think I can cover within these sessions, but I at least want to scratch the surface of it so that you can start beginning your journey on perfecting the concept of dua and increasing your ability to do it and improving the quality of it. The final piece, which we'll end with inshallah ta'ala in the next 5 minutes, and I'll talk about inshallah a little bit more next week. Next week I'll wrap everything up inshallah. The final movement in salah, which is al-julus, which is the sitting piece. And that is also for requesting, but that's regarding your past. So remember I told you when you make sujood, ask for, speak to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala about your present, speak to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala about your future. And He gives you two opportunities because those are very important to you. You don't have to spend too much time on your past, because there's a whole movement in salah that is dedicated only for that. When you sit, the purpose of the julus is for istighfar, is for seeking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's forgiveness when you sit. And it's again a physical transition that mirrors a spiritual one. So when you regret something, when you are ashamed of something that you did or you're embarrassed, and you want to apologize to someone, then the posture has to be reflective of that. So an apology, you don't have to grovel when you're apologizing. You need to, because you have to keep some contact. And you shouldn't be doing it in the most dignified of ways. You shouldn't come there with your chest all open, and it doesn't. So you have to be in a position of humility. So the julus, you're sitting down with your head down. It's a posture of humbleness. It's a posture of humility. Where you're sitting there, it expresses someone who is in regret of something that they did. And that's why you say, Rabbi ghfirli, Rabbi ghfirli, Rabbi ghfirli. The Prophet ﷺ would sit there sometimes, as the hadith of Rabi'a tells us, he would sit in julus and he would give long time. And he would just hear him say, Rabbi ghfirli, Rabbi ghfirli, Rabbi ghfirli, repeating the same word, Rabbi ghfirli. So the tip that I have for you on this one is very simple. Make sure there's in mind a sin of some sort. Do not say Rabbi ghfirli openly, with nothing. Rabbi ghfirli, no. Make sure that you're thinking of something. You're saying, my Lord, forgive me. For what? Fine. For what? If you're not thinking of anything, then why did you say it? It's almost a little bit, rude. Rabbi ghfirli, for what? I don't know. Whatever you want. What do you know? What do you mean? That's not appropriate. That's not. There's no it's not apologetic. There's no repentance in that. It's like, I don't care. Like whatever. No. The whole point of istighfar is the fact that the reason you do it is because you are aware that many transgressions have occurred from you. So we talk about gratitude. The flip side to that is that yes, I am thankful for everything, but I'm also able to recognize how many times I have come short. I've fallen short. How many times I should have performed this action, I didn't. I should have responded in this way and I didn't. I should have taken this initiative and I did not. How many times I have failed to bring my best self forward. How many times I have caused harm. How many times I have sinned. You're aware of that. That awareness is important. And again, when we talked about how each movement of salah, it cures a certain disease of the heart, istighfar, it cures arrogance. Arrogance, which is, we talked about how aimlessness is cured by reading the Quran, and then riya, or ostentation is cured by tasbih, and then vanity is cured by praise of Allah and gratitude. Istighfar, it cures the problem of arrogance. Why? If you are aware of your sin, and you're aware of how many sins you have, and you're aware of the magnitude of your sin, then you have no time to see other people's sin. Because you don't know their sin. You know yours. If I know my sin well, and I don't know yours, then I have no way to compare anything. And if I do perform a comparison, which I shouldn't, and if I do, then I'm always going to seem worse. So there's no space for me to seem that I'm better than others when I'm fully aware of my sin. The people who feel that they can be better than other people are the ones who have no awareness of their own sin. They don't feel that they're sinful. They're good. If you ask them, are you a good person? Yeah, I'm a very good person. Like, good for you. Apparently you have you're offered a certificate by God that I have not been offered yet, that you can say that about yourself. How do you know? How do you know if you're good? You aspire to be good. We all do. We all aspire to be good. We're trying to be good, but I don't know if I am or not. What I do know is I'm very sinful, and I can count them. Sin after sin after sin. I can go after them for hours of how many they are. And that's my certainty. I'm not assuming that I'm sinful. I know that I am. No one else does, but I do. As for your sins, my best case scenario, I assume something. Maybe I saw one sin. Maybe I saw you sin once. Okay, so I have one sin on you. I have 1,000 on me. How am I going to hold myself? How can I see myself better than anyone else? It absolutely removes any form of arrogance in the heart. If you are fully focused on your sin, it doesn't take your self-value away, because you're actually in salah, turning to the one who has the ability to forgive them and to turn a clean slate and to wipe them all out and to offer you a new beginning. So there's no reason for you to panic, but you have to be aware of them. So when you sit there and you say, Rabbi ghfirli, Rabbi ghfirli, Rabbi ghfirli, there has to be something in your mind. Don't sit there mindless. Don't sit there just, Rabbi ghfirli, saying nothing. Think of something. Think of a sin. And it's okay. What I advise you to do is choose one for the week. Choose one sin for the week. You will find that this will actually help you with ridding yourself of it. Because I'm not saying it becomes an obsession, but your interest in it goes up. If you're talking about it 5 times a day at least, right? If you count the rak'at each time, Rabbi ghfirli, you're thinking about this sin. Oh Allah, forgive me for this. I don't want to do it anymore. I wish I wasn't doing it. I wish I was not performing this sin. I wish I was not thinking this way about people, or speaking this way about people, or missing this action, or performing this action, or losing my temper, or treating people. Rabbi ghfirli, you just focus. Rabbi ghfirli, oh Allah, forgive me. With time, you will start to question certain things, and you'll start building a little bit of an attitude towards it. Next week, what I'm going to do, I'm going to explain to you a little bit of how to do istighfar appropriately, so that when you're doing it in salah, you know how to continue doing it outside of salah in a way that's meaningful. But these are the 6 or the 5 concepts that exist in salah. 3 at the beginning that are what you offer Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and 3 at the end is what you get out of it. 2 of them that are repeated, dua, where you get to ask Him subhanahu wa ta'ala twice. And you get to ask Him for whatever you want, focus on your present, focus on your future. And express to Him subhanahu wa ta'ala that which you are struggling with, your fears, your hopes, your desires, and what you would like to see in the world and in life. And then when you sit in between, see, sometimes we do it too quickly. You go, come up, and then go down right again. Why? Because we're, alhamdulillah, sinless, and we have nothing to... No, sit for a second, say, Rabbi ghfirli. Say it a bit. Rabbi ghfirli, Rabbi ghfirli, Allahumma ghfirli, warhamni, wahdini, warzuqni, wajburni. Just say the words, and think of the sin that you're asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to forgive for you. And if you pray that way, then suddenly your salah becomes much more dynamic, and there's no space in it for boredom, and it stops becoming mechanical. I'm not saying that this is what I've explained to you over the last 6 or 7 weeks is going to fix all your problems. But if you start taking these steps, if you slowly each week add one of these little tips, and you focus on this tip for a few weeks, and you get it nice, and you get yourself used to it, and then you add another one, over a course of time, your salah becomes much more calm, and you're able to focus a little bit more within it. Now, to kind of conclude, because I'm going to next week talk a little bit more about istighfar and what dua cures, a few pieces that I need some time to talk about. So if you think about it, the way salah is broken down is every 2 rak'ahs is a unit. Every 2 rak'ahs is a unit. So at the end of each unit, there is an ending of the meeting. So within salah for dhuhr, you have 2 separate meetings with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. 2 rak'ahs, 2. And then also the same thing. And then maghrib, 1.5. and then Fajr is only 1, and then Isha is 2. So that's how it works. So at the end of each unit, there is an establishment of ending the unit. And that is where you sit that tashahhud, the first one or the second tashahhud. And what do you do in tashahhud? You basically wrap up a meeting. Like the wordings of tashahhud are the wordings you would use if you're attending a meeting and you're going to wrap up the meeting by showing respect to those who attended the meeting, making dua for them, and that's what last التحيات لله والصلوات والطيبات والسلام عليك. You give salam to the Prophet عليه الصلاة والسلام. Right? And you give salam to all of the worshipping people, and you give salam to yourself, and then you do salah ala nabi alayhi salam. Anything you end that is going to have value to, you have to end with salah ala rasulillah alayhi salam, which is what you do at the end. So really, this piece is just ending the first meeting. You had 2 rak'ahs, that's the first meeting, you're done. Now you're going to go up, you're going to do another one. You get twice for dhuhr, twice for asr, twice for isha, once for fajr. This is why fajr is longer, because you only get 1 unit. And then maghrib is 1.5, so it's a little bit shorter. So this julus piece of tashahhud, I'm going to explain inshallah the details of it next week, is basically just wrapping up a meeting. The words you would say to end something, to finish up this gathering. And it's beautiful, is because you offer salams. It's beautiful because there's this concept of jama'ah in it. Remember I was telling you that every action in prayer, every main disease of the heart is cured in salah. Like salah has an antidote for it. And someone was, said, what about hasad? Oh, hasad for sure. Hasad is, the antidote for hasad is the concept of jama'ah. What gets rid of hasad is the concept of being a part of an ummah, of a group. When I see myself as a part of a group, instead of envying you, I'm happy if you have more because I'm on your team. Like I want my team to win, so I need you to be better. I need you to be farther ahead. If I'm the best person on the team, then this team is not going to do very well. Like if I'm the best player on this team is going to lose. I need people to be better. So hasad is where you don't want people to be better. You want to be the best person on the team. And to get rid of that, you have to feel as a part of a group, which is why salah happens in jama'ah. Which is why when you speak in salah, it's always ihdina in the plural. And when you sit there, assalamu alayna wa ala ibadillahi as-salih. You're the only one praying. You're probably praying in your office somewhere. There's no one there but you. But you're assalamu alayna, because even when you're praying alone, you're still a part of an ummah. You're still a part of a nation. You belong to a group, and that group belongs to you. And you don't see yourself as separate from that group. Even if you had to pray alone today, even if for this salah you couldn't pray with them, but you're still in spirit with them, and you speak with their tongue when you talk in salah. And that concept is in salah, which is why salah jama'ah. You think about it, it's the most intimate thing you do. You speak to Allah. Why are we doing it together? Why do I have to be standing by someone else as I'm speaking very intimately to Allah, the most personal thing ever? I'm not going to involve you in what I want with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's not your business. But why am I standing beside you? Why does it have to be? Because jama'ah. Because it will rid you of one of the main diseases, which is the problem of hasad that you have. So every main problem, subhanAllah, all of the main problems of the heart and the nafs in Tazkiyah is completely destroyed or removed just by performing salah appropriately. Just by performing it the way it should be performed and working on it. So honestly, if you end up saying, you know what, I'm good with attending these sessions, they're very confusing, I'm not understanding anything, and you decide just to go and work on your salah for the rest of your life, you'll be fine. You'll be fine. You can omit almost everything I say. Because if you do it right, then all of the concepts of salah will lead you towards cleansing your soul. And you will get rid of aimlessness, and you will get rid of vanity, and you will get rid of arrogance, and you will get rid of ostentation, you'll get rid of envy. Right? You will get rid of isolation. You'll get rid of the problems and indifference. And once you do that, then khalas, which is the point of all of tazkiyah. It's just ridding yourself from these bad habits. I'll end with that, inshallah ta'ala. It's 9 o'clock. Subhanahu wa ta'ala. Shadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. Wa sallallahu wa sallam wa baraka wa azzama ala nabiyyina wa habibina wa qurrati a'yunina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Jazakumullah khair wa barakallahu feekum. We'll see you ta'ala next week. The sisters are welcome to go up.